Thank you. And let me say, for my part, it's a privilege to be a member of this wonderful group of soulmates, and to be here today and sharing thoughts with people from so far away in this wonderful Zoom environment. It's just great, just great. And I look forward to talking with you about what I've been doing, and to just start by saying that some of the processes I've been involved with more recently are so aligned with the Trust, Go, Touch project. And I don't know how it is elsewhere, but here still, too many people, whether it is those seeking external help or those offering help to organizations, are stuck with a one-off intervention, with doing an event and then assuming the tick is put in the box, and then people get back to work. And of course that isn't so, and that is why immediately I heard about the Trust, Go, Touch approach of an ongoing process, cumulative, building, reinforcing, to significant sustainability. I gave it the thumbs up. I approved strongly. The challenge is to find people who are willing to seriously commit to that ongoing process. And of course, you have people who, at the time of the commitment, mean it, but then aren't able to handle it because they're just too busy, or they don't have the budget, or personalities change, or they restructure. And that is the frustration of those of us who seek to make this sustainable difference, that it's not always possible, despite the potential to do so and the initial desire of clients to have it be so. So here we are with this challenge of working with our clients to align their energy. Are you able to see the slide here?
Yes, Mike, yes.
Yeah, good. So here we are, the rowing teams aligning their energy, and probably it's the team that has the most aligned energy that will cross the finishing line first. There'll be least waste. And that is the joy of aligned energy. And it comes very much with the first of the three words in Trust, Go, Touch, where you have trust and you feel what the others are doing and you align yourself with them. That's when you don't need mediators, you don't need lawyers with contracts so much, and you can just glide more with using less effort and less energy to your destination. So it's like the magnet also, where not only do you have these fewer resources required and better results, but there's less stress. When energy is aligned, you need less energy. I don't know how it is in other countries. Latin countries aren't renowned for aligned energy. They're not renowned for being high trust, and certainly countries like Kenya are not. For us, it's a big challenge to align ourselves around common visions, and to do all that we need to in an organization, from the leadership level through our systems, to have people pulling in the same direction. Everyone is their own individual, and with a low trust society, it's hard to build, share, and live common visions and values. But that is how I see my life mission, to help people do that. If you look at my LinkedIn bit at the top, it says aligning energy to help people work around their common visions and values. So here in Kenya, and of course a lot of it comes from politics, we have politics that are about 8 times as robust as American Republican primary politics, where everybody's energy is spent trying to neutralize the energy of someone else. It's interesting, isn't it, how Hillary and her competitor have been trying, even as they attack each other more politely, they do a lot of the time show shared agendas. So they're preparing for whoever gets the nomination on that side to emerge in a stronger position vis-a-vis the ultimate competitor. But the way people drive in traffic here, to eat each other up, to overtake, even if it means everyone ends up getting stuck, even and particularly if it means I end up in front of you and I enjoy you being behind me, I enjoy, as I put it here, seeing your blood all over the ground. That's not a very healthy society. It requires strength to hold back from aligning yourself with that kind of dysfunctional behavior. In about 1999, I took part in a wonderful activity in Kenya to build future scenarios for the country. And we ended up defining 4 scenarios. One where neither political nor economic reform would take place, which we called El Nino. We've been having El Nino again this year here now. And at the other extreme, there would be both kinds of reform that would result in what we called the flying geese scenario. I don't know if you are familiar with flying geese and the flying geese metaphor of how they align energy and therefore require much less of it. They support each other, they take it in turns to lead, and it's a beautiful metaphor that so fit what we had as our vision for the ideal Kenya that would fulfill its potential. It's interesting that we've had a few false starts when we thought we were headed in that direction, only to realize that whereas we had gone far in one area, we had not progressed sufficiently in another, and it took us back. And in fact, in 2008, after the 2007 election, we degenerated to many elements of the El Nino lose-lose scenario. So getting to win-win is one of my big themes, and I'll come on a little later to a recent environment where I've been helping people who assume win-lose to realize that with the right kind of negotiating style and with emotional intelligence, it's possible more often than they thought to get to win-win. But politics dominates this country, and politics is a zero-sum game. Either I win the election or you do. And that is why, of course, so many lawyers are good in politics, because they are brought up with this adversarial mindset that when we go to court, either I win the case for my client or the other lawyer wins the case for theirs. It is only if you go to alternative dispute resolution, which is becoming happily increasingly popular, that there is scope for adequate win-win between the parties, which is applicable in some situations of disputes, but not in criminal cases. I've been involved in some mediation activity where I learned a lot about mediation. And I started off with this in 2004 here in Kenya, where we had a coalition between 2 parties who had signed a memorandum of understanding prior to the election in 2002. But then after President Kibaki came to power in 2003, he decided he wouldn't hold on to much of it. And of course, his partner in the coalition was very upset. And so several of us in the private sector offered to mediate. And we created this vision of the desired future and the legacy that people would leave behind, the leaders, if they were to abide by the memorandum of understanding. And again, we created different scenarios, which were win-lose scenarios and win-win scenarios. And the win-lose scenario for the president was to keep on not implementing the MOU. And by and large, our advocacy and our mediation was directed at him and those surrounding him. And that if he gave a little more to his partners in the coalition, then together they would build Kenya and a joint good legacy that would stand them all in good stead, including in the short term and within the electoral cycles. We laid out these scenarios. I did a PowerPoint presentation different times and predicting what the consequences would be of going for win-lose. The president wasn't interested, and our predictions of the win-lose, which would turn out to be a lose-lose scenario came about. We predicted problems with constitutional reform, with electoral smoothness, with civil unrest, and all that happened over the coming years, reaching this climax in 2008. So we keep relaunching and trying to help people understand that it is disproportionately in their interest to be a little more generous and to give up and sacrifice a little bit for the greater good. But that's often not in the way of political activity and political players. And of course, we have this awful role models in America just now. We have worked with this in all kinds of environments in this part of the world. And one common one is between expatriates and locals. So with the World Bank in Ethiopia, with their country office, we mediated, there were over 100 of them in the country office retreat by a wonderful lake, Awassa, in Ethiopia. The Ethiopians are very proud people and very elegant in their hospitality that still comes from the court of the emperor. And if you don't treat them with the elegance and the respect that they expect, they get deeply offended. But because they're so elegant, they don't express their offense. They bottle it up in internal rage. And similarly, the expatriates from all over the world, America, Europe, etc., they're bewildered by this because they feel they're only being straightforward and saying what they think, which is very acceptable in all other World Bank country offices where they have been. So we had to bring people together in conversations where they expressed how they felt to each other and exchanged offers and requests as to what they would do more of and less of in order that all of them would emerge in a much more relaxed frame of mind and engaging easily with aligned energy and all the energy available and none of these bottled up frustrations. And it worked very well. I wrote a couple of poems, and the light touch is always helpful when one does this sort of work, as I'm sure just looking around these wonderful faces and knowing how our network operates is the case. We are people who enjoy life, we enjoy people, and we are infectious with our enthusiasm and our positivity. Another example, of course, is between head office and field, with the usual tensions and how, again, to get people to renegotiate. On the expatriates front, again, we've worked with Orange, you know, the French telecom company, who had a lot of expatriates here in Kenya in the senior management team alongside Kenyan expatriates. But the French behaved in very exclusive kinds of ways, not trusting the Kenyans, speaking in French to one another, being possessive of control, and much resented by Kenyans. And it was not a good idea. And we had a whole 2-day retreat that we were asked to facilitate, where we talked only about these things and how to align their energy. We did role plays of each one doing a sketch about the other, and in all sorts of ways, helping them again to relax with each other, appreciate each other, and not worry about the difference of culture. Just accept it and get on with it. And we worked with another organization where there was a group of Spanish expatriates working alongside Kenyans, or rather not working alongside them. And apparently the term used for the Spaniards was that they were the Spanish Armada, like the Spanish Armada of Francis Drake, who tried to conquer the Britain of Queen Elizabeth I. And so these Spaniards were meant to be coming here to conquer the Kenyans, and it wasn't working. We have a lot of different tribes here, as also elsewhere over Africa, and elsewhere, I mean, in Britain, there are tribes too. I was of the Southeast tribe, and I had less in common with people from the north of England than I do from the north of Kenya. So everywhere where you have different cultures, different ways in which people treat themselves as normal and everyone else as odd, the scope for this alignment of energy and helping people to enjoy each other rather than resent each other or look down on each other. The media, of course, and we were talking about this a little bit with Fabiola before we started, exacerbate the situation. They did so in Rwanda. Everyone knows about the Radio Mille Collines, which stoked up resentment between the two tribes. And here we had CAS FM that did the same thing in Kenya that fueled the 2008 violence. And it is these things that then create the agenda. And I just referred, again, before we started, to this bias against understanding that comes with the media's love of conflict and scandal and sensation. And they come and they focus in on where the thing is at its worst, or indeed it isn't at its worst, but when the people see the cameras, like my first bullet says, the people riot because the journalists went there. And then as soon as the journalists switch off the cameras, the rioting stops. But meanwhile, the images are all over the world. Let me just keep going here. I don't know if people are familiar with this appreciative inquiry, building on the positive. Let me not take more time with that one, but you can stay with these slides. That the reality is founded on what we focus on. And there's always the good to build on, but smart people with high standards too often feel they have to focus on overcoming weaknesses, on criticizing, and on taking the good for granted. And it has terrible consequences. But those who don't operate in that way too often are considered to be softies and perceived to have lower standards, which is not the case. The case is that if you start off by appreciating the good, then people are more relaxed and available to confront difficult issues, to confront differences between them that mitigate against alignment of energy. And there are these different stages of moving through appreciative inquiry. There's a lot about it on Google, as there is about everything these days. So in order to allow more time for discussion, I'll just keep going. Another point that I've come across that irritates me a lot in many groups is that people argue, they debate, they argue, they debate, and it keeps going on for much too long. And so decisions are delayed, opportunities are missed, instead of debating enough and then making the decision. And then everyone getting behind it in an aligned way without the I told you so when there are setbacks and risks to it happening. And there's this very nice Harry Truman saying that you can accomplish anything in life, provided you don't mind who gets the credit. And provided when there are these setbacks, you don't get into the blame game. We work a lot with emotional intelligence. I'm sure that you all do, and I don't have to go with this group through what emotional intelligence is. What amazes me always is how few people actually have come across this thing called emotional intelligence, and how new a concept it is to them. But when one does introduce it, and I introduce it in the context of transactional analysis, which is to me a wonderful, powerful, simple version of illustrating emotional intelligence, they take to it like ducks to water. And I've done this in Nigeria and in Ethiopia and very much here in Kenya and elsewhere. And this emotional intelligence application in order to maneuver through human interactions so that good things happen for all concerned, i.e. to get to win-win, through aligning energy of people, through that kind of leadership to align people around common visions and practicing the common values. And one of the values is appreciative inquiry. So again, I won't go through the business of emotional intelligence, and I also won't go through too much about transactional analysis, but other than to say that it's all about trying to get people to this I'm okay, you're okay mindset, rather than an I'm okay, you're not okay one, or an I'm not okay, you're okay one, the dominant one in this world, or the I'm not okay, you're okay one, like my aunt, who's a miserable pessimist about everything. And alongside that, transactional analysis urges us to consider as often as possible these horizontal relationships as adult to adult, as equals with mutual respect, people who are solution-oriented, rather than the parent-child ones, or the child-child ones, or the parent-to-parent ones. And again, in this company, and I'm sure even if you've not come across this explicitly, you can follow what such behavior patterns can be. Let me go to some other experiences that I've been involved with recently, and in particular, those that are aligned with the Trust Go Touch. And this one is with Kenya's county, and through it, all sorts of functions were devolved, and not least the health function. And so people at the devolved level in our 47 counties that were established suddenly found themselves having to prepare budgets and deliver service and improve infrastructure that had not been their issue before at the devolved level. And so on the bottom right here, we show the path that we revealed at the beginning of our workshop at these county teams to launch a process like the one in the one of the Morena system. And you start off with this conviction, this act of faith that I can make a difference. And you identify where the difference can be made, and then work together to move from the I to the we. And then you go into the processes to see where you should and how you should move from where you are to where you want to be, by first understanding where you are, the root cause analysis and that sort of thing. And you evolve, you have people work together. We talk about this I'm okay, you're okay, adult, which particularly in the public sector is challenging because the hierarchies are steep, the pyramids are steep, the power gaps are big. And in 2 days, though, it's amazing how much progress you can make, how you can transform people's mindsets to launch them on a process then, so that on the top left there, they go off and do their rapid results initiatives, their RRIs in 100 days, just like, again, the approach that Morena's introducing, and importantly, to celebrate and to have made a difference, a significant, sustainable one. If we look to the other chart there, we came up with 3 perspectives to achieve this. And the first one at the bottom there for making a difference is process improvement. And we introduced people to flow charting and identifying bottlenecks and root causes, and then moving towards what they can do about it, and moving from stage to stage through the consequences of doing things until you get to that ultimate desired impact of reducing maternal mortality or other such indicators by going, so what, so what, so what, knowing that too often people don't go far enough with that so what, and often extraordinarily far away from that. And my favorite example is in these performance contracts that were introduced some years ago here in government, where you have, for instance, a target, write a strategic plan. Measure of success, wrote a strategic plan. Full stop. Not what was the consequence of writing it, how is it useful, what happened as a result of it, or train 50 people. Okay, they were trained, then what? Did they learn? Okay, they learned. How did they use what they were learning? How did it affect? maternal health care? How did our workshop affect healthcare in the counties? So that is one perspective. The next one is, you see top left there, leadership for what? For alignment. And there we talked about this emotional intelligence and I'm okay, and exchanging offers and requests in order to bring people together around common objectives and feel good about the progress they are making, better than they were making before we introduced them to that. And finally, and again very importantly for the public sector, where all over the world such people tend to be risk averse, is stimulating boldness in decision making. And we get people to reflect on the spectrum from timidity to boldness. Where are they? Is that a good place to be? Should they be somewhere else? What do they need to do differently in order to be somewhere else? And if indeed it is to become bolder, now here if we have a common code of conduct that together they'll be bolder and the people above them will support that, you actually don't need to be so bold as you would otherwise have been. And it is like with emotional intelligence. The more emotionally intelligent you are, the less bold do you need to be in confronting awkward conversations. The other similar activity I've been involved with is the World Bank's group that calls itself Leadership, Learning, and Innovation. It's based in Washington, and there's a team there, and they work with a few change management consultants around the world. I'm one of them, in order to accelerate the success of the World Bank's development projects in its big loans portfolio. And within the group, there is this CL4D group, Collaborative Leadership for Development, who focus on running the kind of workshops we're actually running with the counties for health here in Kenya. And I've been involved, and I am involved, with a similar process in Nigeria, in a program to accelerate an environmental improvement, one with planting trees, forests, and reducing soil erosion, and to bringing people together. And I won't go into more detail, but just to say it's a very similar process to the Kenya County one and to the Morena one with a flyer that we have. I won't go this one, but I'll just, to conclude, say that it's all about living good values. And most people, certainly in Kenya, have no idea about how to move from a present state of values to an aspirational one. They're very good at defining the problem. They're very good at defining the desired state, but they're not good at knowing how to fill the gap. Well, we guys do that. That's our job, isn't it? And all these kinds of things that I list there are aimed at, of course, aligning energy and getting to the win-win. Not by coincidence, the first word top left, trust. When you have trust, so much is possible. That's why so many of us like this Speed of Trust book by Covey's son. So this business of filling the gap between the desired and the actual is done at different levels, from the individual up through the organizational, and as we have been working here at the national, as we were trying to do, and we hope still one day to be able to do, in Burundi. What can we do to spread positive energy? These are some of the things that we all work on as good Morena members. Partly I write these in reflection of having studied the Jean-Luc's and the François and the others in our group. This is what we do. We spread positive energy and we help others develop their positive energy. And that is why I love being a member of this group. And there I will end this sharing of my theme of aligning energy, for your reactions and for you to share your experiences and for us to discuss.
Thank you very much, Mike, for this present, for sharing your experience. It's extremely inspiring to us.
Mhm.
So now let us ask you some questions in addition to that present you gave us. Anyone would like to ask some questions?
It's Eve here. Thank you very much, Mike. It was very inspiring to hear what you were telling us this morning. This morning for me, but this afternoon for you. I must say I'm quite glad to realize that we're talking the same language. I mean, I like to hear these terms and this terminology, and I'm referring to, you know, appreciative inquiry and what you were sharing with the adult position. I use these tools, and I totally agree with you with the fact it's quite powerful. So it's just reinforced the fact that if it works here, and I'm hearing that it works also all over the place. So, you know, let's continue to use these beautiful products. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva.
People are people, huh?
Sorry?
People are people.
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, definitely.
Mike, please, could you stop sharing your screen so we see all the 11 people we are here? Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Paola. Hello, Françoise. Okay, good. Any other question or suggestion or clarification?
I should add, by the way, that we're about to work with, as I mentioned to you, Francois, to work with the Kenya rugby people. I did some work a year ago at the strategy development level, and we are now about to work with the Kenya women sevens team who will be going to Rio and to do team building for them and energy alignment so they can hammer the opposition in a true win-lose way.
Oh, very interesting. So we will be very interested to have your experience in that field in order to bring more inspiration to our trust, go and win model accompanying sports in Morena. Yes, thank you, Mike. Any question?
Or comments. It doesn't have to be
or
questions.
Comments.
Of course.
Yeah.
Jean-Luc, you are burning.
No, I really enjoy. And I can share also that Mike did an article about trust and happiness, and it's also always also linked together. And if you trust in the other people, you trust in yourself, you are more happy. And I really agree with that, and I think it's very important. So it's not only a strategy; it's just to feel good, and it's important too. Maybe I have maybe one question, Mike. You're working for the World Bank. You've been in Nigeria for that. What's the objective of a few words? What's the objective of this program? Because it's very important that the World Bank is working on energy alignment, and what they are expecting from that program.
Well, obviously the World Bank, along with all the other development partners, are very worried about how difficult it is to do development. And they commit these large sums of money, and they're full of obstacles, and things don't work out as they should. And they've increasingly realized that you have to have this collaborative leadership, this energy alignment, in order to overcome obstacles. And among their clients, the government, they're not always very good at that. And it's the big man, the boss, and the hierarchies. And so we're helping people to flatten their organizational pyramid and to bring people together in different ways. So we go after projects that have not been doing well. They bring us in to accelerate their implementation and their impact. And as we followed up from the October event with this 7 teams from 7 states in this environment improvement project, what we learned 2 months after it was that, number one, the feedback, and we had a session like this, an e-session with Skype and other tools and stuff. Number one, they now trusted each other. They weren't trusting each other before. Now their feedback was they trust each other. And because they trust each other, so many more things are possible, to the extent that the bottom line was that since our workshop, they had accomplished more in the 2 months than they had in the 6 months preceding it. And so at the end of April, we will be doing a follow-up and then another one thereafter to keep this momentum going, because momentum can fade, but one needs to, as the Morena model assumes, one needs to keep going back in there so that these people are actually not only accountable to each other and their bosses, but to you as well, that you have such high expectations of them as well as them of themselves, and let them come back and tell you the good news stories about what they have achieved, what they're proud of, because of having worked with you. So that's the general philosophy, the approach, and it's working. The challenge is, of course, in the World Bank country offices, they're so busy with all their other stuff, with feeding the beast, with visiting missions, with targets, with whatnot, that it's hard for them to be as involved as they should be, to be partners to our consultancy and to the client in achieving the full potential and supporting the process in between our visits.
Okay. At what level, I didn't understand very well, at what level are you working? On the governmental level or just project level?
Well, it's a multi-level one, and it starts with a minister in a ministry, and this is a multi-sectoral one for Nigeria. And there's been one session on education already, one cohort it's called. I wasn't involved with the first session, but I will with the next one. There are these in the environment, there'll be one in agriculture, and maybe another one in infrastructure. And the World Bank, you know, has access at the highest level. So we start with ministers and then we go down through the hierarchy, down to the project level, but where they know that, that the top is watching and expecting. And, you know, when the World Bank signs a contract for $500 billion just in one sector, this environmental project, of course, people right at the top and including the head of state know about it and are in dialogue with the World Bank. And here at the county level with the GIZ supporter project, as GIZ were funding this, we start with the governor of the county, and then there's the minister, the county minister for health and the county director, and then into the projects. We've also done separate sessions for hospital directors in the county. And so we try to bring people together, because then it is we who bring people together who don't normally talk to each other as much as they should, to encourage them to have WhatsApp groups and all sorts of things that people like us take for granted, but others are still not familiar with or not in the habit of.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing this. And I have a question about when you talk about cultural integration challenges. I know that there's you said about expatriates and locals and head office and the field, but I would love if you can profound a little bit about gender gap.
Yes. And this, I'm a K, you're a K, and parent-child. I've applied a lot to women individually in coaching and to women's groups, that it's too easy for the chauvinist man to play the parent, to assume that the woman is the child. And too many women allow themselves to buy into that instead of holding on to their adult status and bringing the man down to the adult status too. And the way I've been helping women with this one, and not just women, but for instance, young people vis-a-vis old people, less educated vis-a-vis more educated, junior vis-a-vis senior, all of this is the same thing actually, is to hold on to the fact that you have your own contribution, your own self-worth, and to imagine these people who are actually behaving as parents, but they're not really parents. They're spoiled children, and they don't have the strength to behave with maturity like adult does to adult. And when I fill in this A between the parent and the child, the adult one, and I ask people, so what does this AA, this adult interaction signify to you? Of course, often as not, I get the answer I'm seeking: maturity. And chauvinism is immaturity. This insecure need for control, or this false superiority complex, whatever nonsense it is. And then the question is, how can the woman react merely by being assertive without jumping into being aggressive? And my wife is a master at that. Mistress. She's so good at calmly and with a smile bringing parents down to the adult level. So when there's this business of, can you take the minutes, can you pour the coffee, there are ways and ways of handling that. And you can do it with emotional intelligence and with a light touch, or you can go for the kick in the stomach and you get loo-loo. How do you help the man who is not behaving well with a woman, not behaving respectfully, to get to that point with a tickle?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I have a question. Talking about Morena, you know, we are professionals of accompaniment. We are not only coaches. And that means that there are trainers, consultants, coaches, mediators, mentors, etc., etc. All of that, all of those professions are in your body, you, Mike. You know all of them. My question is, in energy alignment projects, helping organizations to manage their change, like the ones you mentioned, how do you find the right balance between these professions you apply there? When do you know that now we need advice, or now we need mentorship, or now we need coaching?
You know, it's a bit like asking me, am I Romanian because my parents are? Am I Israeli because I'm born there? Am I British because I was brought up there? Or am I Kenyan because I've lived there now for many years? All these things seamlessly fit together. They're not separated. And similarly, all these roles are just element of the bigger role of helping people and intuitively judging when people are ready for one style or another. As you and I have discussed before with Jean-Luc, coaching is usually not the first step in my experience here. But when people learn to trust you, to have confidence in you, and to relax and to open up to you and to seek your advice, that's when you can start becoming the coach. We start off by being facilitators, running retreats with groups, but even before the retreat happens, often as not, the coaching relationship evolves. Unless you're dealing with rather more brittle people, and maybe it's their very insecurity that makes them want to see you as a mere hired help, as someone they pay a fee to run an event and to push around a bit. But what we find is that the more time goes by and they realize the goodness of what we have to offer, this is not me alone, it's my colleagues, my young Kenyan colleagues, they reach out to us and we feel comfortable suggesting things to them. And it's what you might call tough love, often, telling them things that we suggest to them that they were to approach things differently, they would meet with more success. And the more relaxed they are with us, the more they trust and respect us, the more open and straightforward and forthright we can be to give them that good advice and to feed back to them the consequences of what we hear and what we feel and what we see. And so with most of our retreats, the coaching starts even before them, certainly within them. The more they progress, the more that takes hold. And then at the right moment, it's very normal for us to say, you know, you guys can really benefit from actual coaching, not least the top person, but others too. And we get into that conversation. And a lot of people are thinking about this, but many people have never had experience of it. And so the step between thinking about it and actually starting to do it is quite great. They're not sure it's a good idea, that it'll work, that they can make the time, that it'll cost too much, all these normal things. But when we get going, I had a coaching session this afternoon just before I came into this Zoom. And the first time I was with the person, he was so tight. He was so anxious. And now we're good buddies and we share triumphs and we cry over setbacks. And it's a great thing. And then the coaching in turn can lead back to group activity elsewhere in the organization, maybe at lower levels, maybe in another country. But the judgment as to what people are ready for when is the critical aspect of knowing which bit of one's toolbox or one's style to pull out. And when it's a group thing and when it's an individual thing, and for individuals, who at what level? Who is most ready for the coaching? Who is most in most need of it? Who is most likely to benefit to the biggest extent from it? And then to have a first go with someone. I'm working with a big financial services group here with a CEO, and he's a Kenyan. I know him through Rotary for a long time. He trusts me. He's got South African principles. And so I'm starting with him. And now that he understands more what coaching is about and how he's benefiting from working with me, we're going to be, he's going to be introducing me to his senior management team to work with them and with some group work. And there's no fixed pattern because here it's interesting, it started more at the individual level.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
we were cut suddenly. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is there any last question or comment? You know how many countries are we here? 10. Brazil, Canada, Peru, Belgium, Ecuador, Chile, France, Senegal, Kenya, and my heart is in Argentina as well, but Monica should be with us, but okay, 10 countries. You have a broad experience, very in-depth, very large, with many people, many organizations. You also had your son who disappeared a few years ago when he was playing a role of journalist in Somalia. And my question was, how aligned is Mike today energetically?
You know, one of the reasons I'm so aligned is because of my relationship with my son when he was alive and my wonderful memories of our friendship together. And the way, and a different way in which I sum up the way that I work, that we work in our consultancy, is to expect that at all times we will, as my son used to say, have a good time doing good things. And this was how he lived his life. And it's not just doing good things and being serious, never mind miserable doing them, but enjoying doing them and laughing your way through them. And in more traditional societies like Kenya, with its British colonial heritage, when I came here, I was shocked in 1977 to see that when people were in the workplace, and again, particularly in the public sector, they felt that smiling was not appropriate and joking when you were doing serious stuff. I'm on boards of government bodies here and of this university where I chair the council, and they call me Mr. Chairman and all this, and I've thrown all that out of the window. I rejected it, and much of it is in celebration of the fun I used to have with my son, who was killed in 1993 at the age of 22. And he and I still, as it were, enjoy defying these over-serious cultures that don't allow for playfulness. I was working with, in Dubai last week, with a group of senior Kenyans on the theme of leadership and innovation and leadership. It was a 2-day workshop, and much of it was about the need for being in a relaxed frame of mind for the child within being alive, to be playful if you are to have an environment that allows for, that stimulates, that enjoys, that utilizes innovation. And I learned much about this from my son. And that's why I still think back on my time with him with such joy. And I've been able to survive the terrible loss of a wonderful young man. People just are amazed, and I'm amazed that I've been able to focus on these positives. But the fact of the matter is that I have, and I'm so fortunate in that regard.
Wow. Thank you again, Mike, for your testimony.
What do you wish to achieve today? Morena Coaching International. Close to you, with energy and passion.